Well, we've been reporting on the dismantling of Occupy Wall Street occupations from around the country for months now. But all the while, the one right here in Washington, D.C. has remained standing. That is, until now. Over the weekend, police in Riot and hazmat gear showed up in McPherson Square and cleared many of the tents there in an effort to begin enforcing a long-standing no camping ban. This came nearly a week after issuing eviction notices to the occupiers there. The National Park Police had maintained a pretty good relationship with campers, both at McPherson Square and Freedom Plaza. Complaints about noise and rodents were prevalent, and early last week, Park Police said they'd be getting involved after more than 4 months of allowing the camp to stand. Now, as we said, this was one of the movement's last sites in the country. And we want to talk today about what's next for the movement and also hear a little bit more about what exactly happened over the weekend. And for that, I want to turn now to Occupy DC organizer Sam Jeweler. Sam, you were there. I guess just tell us a little bit about, and we should mention you've been there for the last 4 months. So kind of walk us through what went on, especially in the last 48 hours.
So basically they showed up at 4:30 in the morning on Saturday with about 20 cops on horses. They had a helicopter flying overhead. They had about 50 more cops in riot gear. It was an excessively forceful way to address our dissent. And really how I see it is the government doesn't want to talk about these issues of inequality and the loss of the American dream. They just want to quiet it. They want us out of the park. They want us out of the public eye. And they really don't want to address these issues. So all day they were hitting people with batons, hitting people with their shields. We have one person who was arrested who has a fractured skull, fractured vertebrae, and a broken arm. And we have many more people who were hit over the head. And all we're trying to do is occupy a public park to bring attention to some really serious issues that almost everyone in this country is suffering from.
Now, we've been showing pictures that one of our web team writers that works here at RT, that he shot over the weekend. But you were there. Talk a little bit about exactly, I mean, you said there were a few people hurt, but talk a little bit about sort of what was going through your head and what you were witnessing happen.
I really have never felt so much personal pain and anger in my life. I mean, this is a community that we've built up over 4 months. Like, these people that you're seeing in these videos are like family to me. And it was just such a beautiful space, especially over the last week when people thought that we were going to be kicked out. A lot of more people were coming down to the park and getting involved. We had people coming every night, from congressional staffers to people coming out of bars, just coming into the park and wanting to talk about issues with us. And that's really what it's for. And the police came in and they really didn't care about whether they hurt people or not. They were arresting people left and right for just being in a park. They were throwing away people's personal belongings, throwing away tents that they said would comply if they had no bedding in them. They broke their own promise and threw them away. And
we're showing pictures right now of the Tent of Dreams that was up. Talk a little bit about the significance of that. That has not been up the whole time. That only went up after those eviction notices were issued at the beginning of last week.
Right. So we put up the Tent of Dreams kind of as a symbol of we should be able to sleep in this park because we have a dream for this country, like Martin Luther King had a dream. And it touches on the American dream, which is that if you work hard, you should be able to have success. But right now, social mobility, which is the measure of the American dream, is at an all-time low. People are working hard, they're going to college like they were told to do. They were promised that when they got out of college, there'd be a job for them. And most of the time now there isn't. And the average student graduating from college now is $25,000 of debt. The average student, $25,000 of debt. So
it's no longer that you come out of college and you start with nothing. You actually start in the negative. It's a big hole to try to crawl out from.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting how you were saying that this movement and this occupation in particular, and the fact that it's in D.C. I mean, it's a few blocks from our studios. It's also just a few blocks from the White House. So you were saying you had actual congressional staffers coming down to talk with you guys, and you know, the whole sort of variety of people that is in D.C. that they would just stop by. So for that reason, to me, it sounds like the occupation, having the tents there, having people there 24/7, has served as sort of a marketplace of ideas, a place to come and discuss things. Exactly. What happens now that the camp has been dismantled?
You know, it's a good question. I think the movement is going to look a little different in D.C. now. We still have our info tent in the park. We still have our library with over 1,000 books. People are free to come and borrow and bring back whenever they want. So it's still going to be, I think, a marketplace of ideas. People won't be sleeping there, but we will have a constant presence. I think the important thing to realize is that this movement is not just about the people sleeping in the park. This is about you sitting at home watching this on TV. If you think government isn't serving you the way it should be, maybe the way it used to be, you're part of this movement too. So everyone has something to offer, and this movement has to be about more than just 100 people sleeping in a park, because everyone is having problems these days, and everyone needs to do something about it, even the smallest thing.
Well, it seems to me, Sam, I mean, since you've been there over the last 4 months, you've said you've sort of built up friendships. And I've heard more and more, especially over the last few weeks, that the occupation aspect of this is just one strategy. It's not the only aspect of Occupy Wall Street. What have you guys talked about in terms of, I mean, you knew this day would come. It certainly came a lot later than most people thought it would here in D.C. But when you look at Oakland, today they're doing, you know, showing solidarity with those who have been arrested, marching to the courthouse. There's actions I know planned for New York. What is next in terms of an actual strategy to keep this movement alive now that the tent camp is not alive anymore?
Right, I think it's going to be more of a dispersed strategy. People working with different groups around the city on different issues. So we have Occupy Our Homes, which is people helping to prevent foreclosures, because foreclosure is a huge problem in this country. Companies and banks making a profit off of kicking you out of your house. So that's a big thing that we are starting to work on, is helping people block their homes from being foreclosed. We also have general assemblies being organized around the city. So I think there's one being planned for Mount Pleasant soon, which will be people coming together who are from that community, who have grievances with the government, and they're going to get together and talk about what to do. So,
just real quick, Sam, I mean, what do you say to those people who are looking at this, the critics of your movement, the critics of Occupy Wall Street, who say, finally, the last big one is down. We don't have to hear from these dirty hippie occupiers anymore. I mean, what do you say to those people?
You're going to hear from us a lot more. This is far from over. In fact, we had more people coming and getting involved once they saw first the Tent of Dreams go up, and then once they saw the brutality that was inflicted on us by the police. So this movement's only getting bigger. There's so many problems to tackle, and everyone knows it. So.
All right, Occupy DC organizer Sam Jeweler, we appreciate you coming and sharing your experiences with us.
Thanks for having me.
Here on RT. Thanks.